What's up, Klamath Falls? This is Dave.
Hey, what's up, Klamath Falls? This is Mike, and today we've got Andy Nichols with us, running for County Commissioner, Position One. Andy, I'd like to thank you for coming out to the show, and like to know a little about yourself, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Andy Nichols, and I guess what's up, Klamath Falls?
Yeah.
so, and Mike, Dave, thanks for having me on. I really appreciate this opportunity, and I like what you guys got going on with this new show.
Thank you.
Everything. So, again, thanks for being here,
Sure.
for having me be here.
Yeah.
So, a little bit about me. I grew up here. My parents divorced when I was pretty young, 3 years old. So I grew up in a divided household. Um, my mom remarried several times. It was not the greatest childhood. A lot of domestic violence, drugs, things like that. And I bounced around family members, lived with my mom, lived with my dad, grandparents, aunts and uncles, and whatnot. So I guess what I'm driving at is I didn't have a great, picture perfect childhood, and I really didn't have a lot of guidance and know what I wanted to do when I started coming into adulthood. And a Marine recruiter talked to me one day and did a really good job. He hook, line, and sinkered me, and it got me to enlist in the Marine Corps when I was 17 years old.
Okay.
I went to boot camp at 17, graduated from boot camp, and spent 20 years in the Marine Corps. I was an infantryman by trade. I've been stationed at places all around the world, done 10 deployments altogether, some combat deployments, some security type deployments, and some other um, different type missions that I did in Africa. But 20 years in the Marine Corps, worked my way up to an E8, a master sergeant, and I retired at my 20-year mark. I finished my career working at Headquarters Marine Corps in Quantico, Virginia, and I worked between there and the Pentagon, working on a lot of major initiatives. Was awarded numerous times for achievement, valor, those types of things. So I had a really successful Marine Corps career. My kids, I have four kids. I have triplets. They're 18, and then I have a 6-year-old son. Um, Two different marriages. My first wife and I, she's a great girl. She's here locally. Her name is Heather Ladner. We got married really young, and extremely young, and
Yeah.
we made our mistakes, and in the long run, things didn't work out. But the reason I bring that up is I really loved my job in the Marine Corps, but my kids, my son lived with me, my daughters lived back here with mom, and just kind of the divided household. I wanted my kids to be together, and mom and dad to be in the same place. So I decided to retire and move back here. Moved back here and kind of tried to figure out what I wanted to do in life, and eventually settled on, well, I'll give law enforcement a try. The Klamath County Sheriff's Office hired me. I worked as a corrections officer for about a year and transferred to the patrol side. I worked patrol for about 4 years, for a total of 5 years with the Sheriff's Office. Was an honors graduate twice out of the academy, and held numerous positions within the Sheriff's Office. I was a field training officer, a forest deputy, a medical legal death investigator, and I'm sure there's, oh, and I was the president of the union representing all the deputies. Um, I have a degree in political science. Oddly enough, I'm getting into politics. um, I'm not like the Karl Rove or the Rush Limbaugh type where I've got this crazy political mind. I've just always been interested in public policy, in government and politics. So that's why I chose that field to study. Um, and yeah, I'm married. My wife's name's Kylie. She owns a feed store, farm feed store. She's had it about a couple months. She
Yeah.
recently purchased it. Her and Will Oxley are business partners together. And we've got the four kids, triplets that are 18. Um, One is going on to George Fox to study nursing. The other is going to Oregon State to study agriculture. And then the other daughter is kind of in limbo right now, trying to figure out what she wants to do. She's changed her mind several times. Um, Today was kind of an interesting day. I'm gonna sidebar.
Sure.
I got to tell you this story. So my son, his name's Kyle. He's the one going to Oregon State for agriculture. He loves flying, and his grandfather and his uncle are pilots, and he's always been very into aviation. And so a couple years ago, he started saying, I think I'd want to fly crop dusters when I get older. Okay, that's interesting. Well, he's kind of going that route. He's doing all his flight training right now as we speak. So he's still in high school. He goes to school till about noon, gets out, goes and does his flight classes, and then goes and works. He works for his great uncle farming. Um, but today he asked me to go on a flight with him. So I went up in a plane with my 18-year-old son flying. and,
How'd that feel?
And I don't know, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how to fly,
Yeah.
And I'm like, my mercy. I taught him to drive, and I'm sure we've all taught kids to drive, and I'm thinking, well, I mean, I guess we can't hit anything but the ground. So I went flying with my son today for the first time. It was kind of a proud dad moment and a little bit of a twisted nuts, like.
And your hair. So,
Yeah, we made it. We made it. And it was fun, and he did great, and it was a great day flying. So that's a little bit about me. I mean, the big things, I worked 20 years in the Marine Corps, retired, I have a college degree, and I worked 5 years for the sheriff's office. And now I'm running for county commissioner. One of the first questions I get is, why are you running for county commissioner? Like I said, I'm very interested in public policy and politics, and I'm drawn toward those debates, those talks, how to improve our community. My entire life has been about serving something bigger than me, and I would like to continue to do that if the citizens of our county would like me to be the one representing them. So that's why I'm running for county commissioner, position 1.
Good deal. No, I kind of get that. I actually have contemplated running for county commissioner over the last few years, but I retired and now I'm a podcaster. So we'll see how this career path takes us, and we'll go.
Maybe I'll win, and then you can run against me next time.
Well, again, thank you for being here. And there's a lot of topics in Klamath County that we can talk about. I know that the Measure 110 issue has been a big issue. With the drugs in general are just an issue. And what direction are you looking to go? How do you?
Well, yeah, absolutely. So your viewers are aware Measure 110 was passed by our legislature several years ago, and is what it did is it decriminalized user amounts of hard drugs like methamphetamine, cocaine, fentanyl, those types of things. So prior to that, if we arrested somebody for whatever reason, they got in trouble, they had a warrant, and we found a gram of one of these drugs on them, they would get charged. They'd catch a criminal charge for that. And then they decided to go away from that, and what that made, it was legal to have these things. And well, once it's legal to have that, there's a lot more of it. It's a lot easier to get, and it brings a lot of problems. Property crime rates, we have an extremely high property crime rate. There's probably not many people in this town that either haven't been affected by property crime or know somebody that's been affected by property crime, whether it's your car stolen or something, your chainsaw. So high rates of property crime, and then obviously most of these drugs, once they start using them, lead to addiction, and then addiction brings its own set of problems, be it mental health problems, family problems, families getting tore apart. There's numerous things. So all in all, it's my opinion that the state of Oregon really missed the target on this Measure 110, and it's caused a lot of devastation in all the communities in the state, but especially our community. And working in the sheriff's office, obviously I lived it and was around it all the time, so it's probably a bigger thing in my mind maybe than everybody else's, because we live and see that every day. It's a lot. So our legislature has walked it back. They've recriminalized the hard drugs and made them so they're misdemeanor crimes. And there's some talk and debate right now of how that's going to look. Whether it's punishments or treatment and the requirements and all that, which is good. I think it's good that there's some consequence now. So there's got to be some sort of deterrence to get the usage and get it off the street and those types of things.
My concern, and I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
my concern
absolutely.
there with that though is, okay, so it's a misdemeanor. You have a homeless or a person on the street that's using, let's say, fentanyl, and you guys catch him and you issue a citation for whatever amount that he's got, or maybe it's overnight in jail, however that looks. He has no money to pay a fine. So you can't really fine them. So what, and in my opinion, from that perspective, if I'm a homeless guy and I get to spend a night or two in jail where it's warm and I get fed and all that, that's not really a deterrent.
You're right, and it's tough, right? How do we deter that type of thing? And there's discussions right now that maybe they're the first time offending, they get a diversion type program, get offered treatment, which they had under when it was legalized. What you did was issue a citation and a card that they had to call and do a consult for treatment. And as long as they did that, it was essentially waived, or $100. So it literally is more if you get a seatbelt ticket than if you get a fentanyl ticket.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's right in itself, but it does bring up the problem that maybe that going to jail doesn't bother that person, right? Um, I think that is a paradigm that numerous crimes can fit for that
It's
type
true.
of individual. And it's not the diversion programs. I think they have a place and they offer treatment, but if they don't go through that and then you get a second offense or a third offense, then it needs to move to that felony level. And they, in my opinion, should be incarcerated and should do some time, and there should be some consequence. Now, when you're talking 6 months, a year in jail, maybe that person starts to think a little differently than a night in jail.
Yeah.
But we're not there yet. That it's still being talked about within different counties, different models of how this is going to work once it happens. And we have an opportunity as Klamath County and the citizens and our leaders to shape this thing and make it work best for us and the issues that we have in our county. That a lot of times, though, the usage of these drugs is tied to the property crime and violence and all these other things. So the only way to curb that is to have some sort of inducement punishment, and we'll see how it works in the long run. But I think we're going a better direction than we were. The direction we were headed was bad.
A free for all.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Um, and that kind of addressed too, because we do have a big homeless problem here in Klamath Falls. And I'm kind of a charitable person. My father passed recently. I collected a bunch of stuff out of the house, clothing and that. I just drove around and gave it away to people that were pushing shopping carts and that up and down the street. One, I didn't have anywhere to put the stuff, and two, like it can help them out. But I know it seems like a lot of those folks, I can't say a lot. There's a fair amount that choose that lifestyle that don't want
Right.
boy, that's a challenge. I don't know how you fix. That's a tough one.
I don't either. We have a lot of programs in this county for homeless people.
Oh yeah.
Whether it's just your regular person or a veteran or somebody with some sort of special status. Regardless of that, we have programs to get people into homes or off the streets. Some people don't necessarily qualify for those programs due to substance abuse. And then there are the people that just choose that lifestyle. I think that when I was in law enforcement, we used to call it the urban woodsman. So what do you do about that? It's tough because should it be a crime to be homeless? Absolutely not.
Right.
There's times people are down on luck, and we live in America where people get to make their choices of what they want to do. So I don't necessarily think we need to be criminalizing homelessness, but
No.
homelessness a lot of times brings unsavory things with it. Squatting, trespassing, leaving their garbage around.
Right.
If you're a business owner and you have a business on South 6 and you go to your work one day and there's a tent set up in front of your, like, those things aren't okay.
Right.
So we got to find a balance, and I think we have some room within our county ordinance. There was a recent Supreme Court decision out of actually Grants Pass, where they were trying to, decide whether homelessness could be criminalized in some form or fashion, basically street camping. And the Supreme Court decided yes, that you can hold people accountable. You can set laws and violations for things like that. So obviously, what we want to do is get those people in homes. Now, Klamath County, that's a whole nother issue we can talk about
Right.
is housing. But we'd like to get those people in homes. And I think that how we do that is through outreach. Law enforcement, a lot of times, are talking to these people frequently because they're the ones moving them off the sidewalk down the road. And having our law enforcement officers and agencies educated on all the programs and able to talk to these people because like you said, they don't want it, but after 5, 6, 10 times of being talked to, maybe one time it sticks, and they go somewhere. But irregardless, like I said, it is their choice. But it shouldn't inconvenience the business owner or the shopper, or cause big messes where they're leaving their trash everywhere, or even the bigger one, because it gets cold here. A lot of people think the homeless go away in the winter here. Some do, but a lot of them go inside. Houses that aren't theirs, cars that aren't theirs, sheds that aren't theirs, and that brings its own set of problems with it. So how do we attack that? Part of it is the housing issue, like I said, which is a separate issue, but having all of our people that have contact with these people, whether they're people from mental health, people from law enforcement, charitable organizations, aware of the programs that are available, and just continue to attack, and try until either you can get them in homes or you can't.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one of the challenges I think I see for law enforcement across the board, and it's one of the most disheartening things that I've heard recently. And this is a couple of years ago. I'm not going to say which office of law enforcement it was, but a law enforcement officer I was talking to, and he was so frustrated. He said, "I don't even know why I come to work every day, but I do, because my hands are so tied, I can't even do my job anymore." And as a citizen, that breaks my heart and it makes me mad. We pay taxes to have these people to protect us and our property and look out for things. And then you've got higher levels of government that don't want to let them do anything. And it's really frustrating.
It is, and I can say I've been there, and I empathize with all of our law enforcement officers locally that strap on that uniform every day and go deal with these issues. A lot of times they just feel like they're running in circles, never getting anywhere. A lot of that has to do with what our legislature has done, and when we make it so easy to be homeless or to commit crimes and have no punishments, a lot of time I think people are going to go the easy route. They're going to pick that path. And so, as a law enforcement officer or a mental health provider or a doctor at the hospital, these people come in and the law enforcement officer tries to hold them accountable. The mental health provider tries to get them treatment. The doctor tries to get them treatment. And when they say no, you just feel like you're spinning your wheels. But you're going to contact them next week. You're going to contact them next week, and you're going to contact them next week. And the only thing we can do right now is just keep trying, and begging those above us to give us more tools and more resources to attack it.
And I guess that was part of my next question is, so at the county commissioner level, do you have much input or power to make changes that way?
I believe so, and I think it can come through a couple of routes. One is collaboration and getting people working together toward common goals. One thing I noticed when I was a law enforcement officer dealing with these things is you have, just hypothetical scenario, you have homeless, mentally ill person. We'll call him Mike.
Thank you.
We'll call him Mike. So a deputy contacts Mike in the morning, and Mike's you can tell talking to him that Mike has maybe some mental health issues. He's homeless, but you need him to move along from where he's at for whatever he's trespassing. So you talk to Mike. You maybe engage him about some services. He's not interested. You tell him, hey, you got to move along. And then in the afternoon, another deputy goes and contacts Mike. Kind of the same thing. We move him along, and then maybe he goes into the city, and then in the evening, the city officer contacts him, and then maybe by that time he's taken some drugs and he's really not right, and they've got enough criteria. They take him to the hospital. And the hospital then tells them, hey, follow up with behavioral health. Behavioral health tells them, hey, either we have room for you or we don't, or maybe he doesn't want to engage in services. But at that point, just in one day, he's been contacted by 4 different agencies, And typically all of them have a different goal. The first guy's goal is to get him to move along. Second officer's goal is to get him to move along. Third officer finally says, let's try to help. And the hospital wants to help. And then the person doesn't want to engage. So I think that we have an opportunity to collaborate more. Something like a mental health. So we have public safety councils right now. We have councils for lots of different things. And I'm interested in exploring this idea for mental health, to where we've got representatives from the sheriff's office, from the PD, from Oregon State Police, from the Sky Lakes, from behavioral health, from the different treatment programs in town that can meet periodically. And I don't want to put a number on it, but they can meet periodically and talk, break down some of the HIPAA barriers and talk specifically about Mike. Hey, the sheriff, we've talked to Mike 3 times this month. We've talked to him 4 times this month. And then mental health says, we've been looking for Mike. Next time you see Mike, can you call us and we can get our person out there? And some of that happens now, but I think we could do a better job at collaborating on it. So I think as at the Board of Commissioners, one of your job is leadership. I mean, your main job is leadership, and it's bringing organizations together to focus on problems like that. So that's one avenue I think we can work on. I'd really love to see, like, a vision in my head is that the law enforcement agencies have mental health professionals embedded in that would be amazing. There are different agencies around the state that do that, and that's super helpful. When I was at the sheriff's office, for a time, we did have a KBBH worker embedded with us, and we were able to get a lot more progress in the mental health area, because that individual could take notes and keep track, and then she could tell the deputy, like, hey, we need to go talk to so-and-so, and eventually maybe we get them civilly committed, or because there are people, that's kind of a touchy word to say, civilly commit somebody, but there's times that it's needed. If that person's a danger to the public and they continue to be, then we need to sometimes force help upon them. But programs like that cost money,
Right.
and money is always short everywhere in government, and maybe it's not always spent the smartest, but it costs money, and I think moving forward, especially with regards to, and I could talk forever about public safety. That's one of my platforms. But with regards to public safety, mental health, all these things connect together. At the end of the day, we as a community are going to have to have some candid conversations and make some decisions that if we are not going to fund projects, then it's just going to stay status quo. And that's maybe okay too. I don't personally like that, but if the community doesn't want to throw more money, then sometimes and money isn't the answer to everything, but man, it's the answer to a lot of things.
Yes, it is. It is. And I think that kind of ties me into a similar topic that can affect that, and that is growth in the county. I know that I'm a transplant. I'm not originally from here. I moved here in 2005 because I love the area.
Where'd you come from?
Livermore, California. So, yeah, East Bay area. But I didn't bring that attitude or that mental positioning with me. I came here because I like this environment and the people here and all that. Without getting into too political of a phrase there, but I just like the way things are here. However, I have noticed that it seems like there's been a long resistance to growth. And I think that there is a fine line between, I came here because I like the small community. I don't want it to turn into another big city like where I came from. Along that same line, though, as you grow and you develop into a more developed area, you get more tax money, and and especially if you can bring in more jobs besides fast food and retail, for crying out loud, you bring in those tax dollars that help to provide for programs like that. And so I don't know what your take is on that opinion, and how you feel about growth, and do we want to keep it the small community that it is? And if that's the case, then so be it. I'm not going anywhere. But at the same time, I think controlled growth. It seems like a lot of businesses have wanted to come to Klamath Falls that in the past have been run out by regulations or things that just didn't make it profitable for them to open up here. And I would really like to see that change. If we could have a Costco, or there's been rumors of, I forget, a Sam's Club or
Winco forever.
Winco. Yeah, yeah. If we could start bringing in, more businesses, more attractions for people in general, I think that there is a fine line that you can walk there that benefits the community without overwhelming the community.
Agree, absolutely. Growth. One, we live in a beautiful area that attracts people. I mean, there's so many opportunities, whether it's recreation, your lifestyle. This is an amazing place to
It
live.
is.
I moved back here because I love this. I could have went anywhere when I retired. Well, my kids were here too, but I love this place, and it attracts people. So that kind of means growth is inevitable. We are going to grow. We have been growing.
Mhm.
It- there was a backslide, decades ago when the timber industry kind of fell off, and then we had the issues with agriculture. But either way, Klamath has continued to grow through those things, and I think that's going to be the way forward. We are going to grow, but you're right. Do we want to become Bend? Do we want to become, Eugene, Salem, the valley areas that grow?
Right.
I don't necessarily want that because that we got to balance, like you said, kind of that small town feel with growth and opportunity. So it needs to be a balanced growth, and it balanced off numerous things from our infrastructure to our schools and our way of life, all of that. And yeah, 100% we should be welcoming industry like Winco
Hmm.
or Costco, things because that's jobs, that's more money in our economy, all of those things. I 100% support that. But I mean, I don't know that I could be in support at all of crashing our farm ground and turning it into housing developments and those types of things. So I mean, our farming, our recreation, our beautiful scenery, that's all part of what makes this place great. And if we start developing all that, we can lose that.
Absolutely.
So it's balancing, and I of course want to see growth probably more slowly than quickly because as you grow slowly, you can keep up with infrastructure and services and those types of things. But you're right, the more growth we have, the more tax dollars we have. But that's also the more services we're providing.
True.
Take something like policing. That's another area that you're policing, and so there's.
Oh, and there's, water treatment and utilities, and there's a lot that goes along
I
with
hear that a lot. People will say, "Well, we can get more revenue by growing." Yeah, that's true, but that also means more expense. So
Right, right. Yeah, no, and believe me, I realize that. And I think, again, it depends on the type of growth. And um, I'm so tired of seeing more and more fast food restaurants come to this town. To me, fast food is just a health issue waiting to happen. Um, Bring some quality restaurants, but bring some business back to Klamath Falls. We lost, the place that used to do the bathtubs out by the airport, the shower
Aquaglass,
stall,
yeah.
Aqua Glass. We lost, them, and that was a big company and good paying jobs, and they went away, and more industry like that, I think, is what I'd like to see.
Absolutely. How do you get it? Here's the question.
Well, I think you make it more economically feasible for those businesses to come to town instead of making them jump through hoops
I,
and all this red tape to just get permits to build. Help expedite that
yeah,
process.
I'm 100% behind that. Anywhere we can cut red tape and regulation to make it easier for building, for industry, any of those types of things within limits. I gave an example earlier. I wouldn't be for taking our, a right farmland and turning it into because we still have to feed our population, and that's part of our heritage too. Um, but yes, I am in agreement. If any way that I can find or we can find as a community to make it easier to bring those types of industries in, I fully support that. And I'm all about reaching out to them and talking to them and hey, how can we encourage you to get here so we have more better quality paying jobs.
And just to clarify on the farmland, I am not advocating that at all. My last job, I drove fuel truck, and my customers, all of them were farmers, or almost all of them. And it really opened my eyes to the struggles that our agriculture people are going through, and this whole water thing just drives me nuts. We can afford to flush thousands of acre feet of water down a river, but we can't provide enough water for our farmers to grow the food that we need to eat to exist. Um, that I know that there's a fine line somewhere. I know that can be a really touchy subject with some folks and certain fish.
I don't mind talking about it at all. I mean,
Okay.
like I said, I'm from here. My family is tied to the agriculture industry. I graduated from Lost River. I worked in the fields when I was in high school, putting out pipe in the potato fields and helping bale hay and all that type of stuff. And now I live out in Pill Valley. I'm surrounded by agriculture. My wife owns a business that is an agriculture industry business. So I understand the importance, the amount of money that comes through our local economy, and how often it turns over. It's huge. And then even more than that, that is part of our heritage. I mean, one of the things that made the basin what it is the Klamath Project. Now, that doesn't mean that the heritage of the tribe should be diminished either.
Right.
You know that we 100% need to respect them, and I think maybe we've finally come to a point here where we're understanding that, and the farmers and the tribes can work together and collaborate, and I really think they want to at this point. We've got so much federal regulation that since 2001 is just built and built and built to where it's this big juggernaut of federal regulation, and and now they're regulating the water and flushing it, and the tribes necessarily aren't getting what they want, the farmers aren't getting what they want, and one of my competitors, Moss Driscoll, like if he comes on here, he is crazy smart with this stuff. I mean, that's what he does is water. Um, and he frequently talks about there we have enough water to support everything we need. It's just getting the right people to talk to each other. And at the county commission level, they, there's dozens of state and federal agencies that regulate the water thing. And so the question I get asked a lot is, what can a county commissioner do? You can be a point of advocacy. Commissioner Groot just went back with the water users to DC and was advocating, for changes and more water for our agriculture industry. And that's where I think that the heart of what a commissioner can do lies is in that. And then the other piece, they've recently established the Council of Governments, which brings in all of the municipality leadership and the tribal leadership and all of that. And in those venues is where people locally can start talking and making compromises. And maybe there's some avenues where we can cut some of this federal bureaucracy out and work together on our resource that is everybody in the basins, and bring it back under our control. I mean, in an ideal world, that's what it would be: is the ag industry, the farmers, the downstream folks, all locally would be working out plans to economically share the water instead of the federal government telling us what we're doing and just dumping it down into the ocean. We have more water now than we've had in years, and farmers don't have full allotments, and we're dumping it down
Right.
the river.
And that I lose my mind over that kind of
I
stuff.
think everybody does.
Yeah, it's
regardless
just
of what
so
side of the issue
ridiculous.
you're on, you're like, we're just wasting it at this point.
Well, and it's going to come to a point generationally where the offspring of these farmers are going to get to a point where it's just not worth it, and they're going to walk away. And I've already seen it in the dealings that I've had with them over the years, doing business with them. Is that these kids are like, I don't want to do this. It's hard work. It's not rewarding. It's a constant battle, and I can't really say that I blame them. You know, you choose to farm as a career, and it's you're not. Farming's the easy part. The hard part's dealing with all the regulations that are
Yeah.
put on you.
And sometimes it almost feels like that, Big Brother, the government's kind of pushing that and wanting people more into the cities and wanting more
15
control
minute
over the
cities.
land. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel that it's incumbent upon us to push back on that, that philosophy or that line of thinking and maintain our heritage of agriculture and tribal heritages and our local economy and the ability to sustain and feed ourselves without having to rely on the federal government or
Right.
state government for those types of
Exactly. Yeah. Good to hear.
things. Yes, sir.
Sorry, Dave. I've been talking so much.
I feel like you're just staring at the back of my head, Dave. I'm sorry, man.
You're good. Well, I'll just throw a screwball, I guess. Flying is awesome. I've been lucky enough to go up in a Cessna a couple months ago. If Andrew had a weekend, what would you do? Hobbies? Or
Oh man, a weekend. So
Well,
let, I'll explain my weekend to you right now so far. So my daughter, she runs track and she ran the state track meet this weekend, and my other daughter plays softball, and they're going into the playoffs. They're all at Henley. So on Friday, I got up, I drove to Eugene, was there about a half hour. I got to Hayward Field, watched my daughter run her race, jumped back in my truck, drove back down here because my other daughter had an awards banquet for softball. Went to her awards banquet, went over to a friend's house, went to barbecue, went home, got up the next morning, went back to Eugene to watch my daughter run in the finals, and then came back yesterday evening and then got up and went flying with my son today. So my hobby right now is my kids. That's really where I spend most of my time. What do things I like to do if I have time? It's been a lot of years, but I mean, I enjoy the outdoors. I enjoy camping. I love fishing. I'm not big into hunting anymore. I was when I was growing up. My son's really big into it. I think my time in the Marine Corps made me not so much interested in killing things. Um, but yeah, I think that the next year, as my triplets move on and out of the house, my wife and I are going to find us trying to figure out what do we like to do and who are we with.
Yeah.
We still have one kid at home, and he'll take a lot of our time. But when
So
you drop three off at once, it's going to be a big change.
Right.
Well,
So
I
to
just
answer
have
your
to
question, I don't.
And I just have to, I'm sorry to interrupt. I had to say kudos to you for surviving triplet girls. No offense to your daughters.
Two girls and a boy.
Oh, two girls and a
yeah,
boy,
yeah.
but still triplets. I can't imagine three at a time. So
I can say, that old saying, it takes a village, and it has with the three of them. Their mom's family, my family, their stepmom, everybody. Like we have to.
yeah.
Especially when they're young and you have three. It's like, I remember when they were babies. It's like, she's got two, and one's changing the diaper, and it's like this. It was a lot of work.
Imagine.
Yeah. I mean, kudos to Heather, their mom. Like it's been, we've made it. They're 18. Like
That's great. That's great. Huh.
I didn't have
That's
a
all
whole
you
lot.
got?
You covered all the major hitters, I guess.
Sorry, I just kind of went on a roll there.
No, you're good, man.
that's great.
You're good.
How about you? Is there anything that you'd like to add to the conversation, or?
Get out and vote. The primary comes up at Tuesdays. Tuesday's the final day. Your ballot needs to be postmarked by Tuesday. There's some rumors going around, and people have probably seen it on social media that the U.S. Postal Service is holding up ballots. And our clerk put out a statement yesterday that is not happening locally. The ballots are coming in. You can drop them off at the different. I think all of like the city halls around the county have ballot drop boxes. The courthouse, but the
County clerk's office has
county clerk's office, or you can drop them in a mailbox. But I encourage everybody to vote. Like these, it's pretty cool. This is the first time, at least I've seen locally here, this many candidates. I mean, we've got 9 candidates for my position, 7 candidates for sheriff, 3 candidates for the other position. That can mean a couple things. One, it can mean people are disenfranchised with government, so they're standing up, or it can just mean that people are really wanting to be involved in civic action. And either way, like I look at my race right now, nine people I'm running against. That can be discouraging when you're thinking about your campaign, but I see it as encouraging that we have that many people that want to be involved in our local government and help. And I got to say about everybody running in my campaign, everybody's been great to each other, and we've all, there hasn't been any down talk or kind of mudslinging stuff within our race. And we all have talked to each other and said, if you get elected, tell me what I can do to help, and vice versa. And I think that's amazing.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah. So there's a lot going on with our election right now, and I think that the low propensity voters out there might look at this primary and say, well, I'm a conservative voter. My only option is Donald Trump. Like, I'll wait for the general election. Don't forget about your local elections. Like it, local politics probably has a bigger effect on us than national politics.
Absolutely.
So I encourage everybody, like, study your candidates, read your voters pamphlet, and get that ballot in the mail before Tuesday. And if you're so inclined, vote Nichols for Commissioner position 1.
All right. Yeah, that's all you got?
Yeah, I'm good. You, like I said, you covered everything. Unless Andrew had something else.
No, Mike, Dave, thanks for having me on here.
Absolutely.
I'm excited about your show, and I
Thank you.
see it grow, and this is really cool. Like I was laying in bed one night because I do a lot of thinking. I have a busy brain. I've always had an issue sleeping, and I read at night, whether it's on my phone or a book, and so it was, I don't know, when I reached out and contacted you, whatever, that was 2-3 weeks ago, and I was scrolling and I saw this, like, what's up, Klamath Falls, and I started watching it, and I laughed a little, and then I'm like, oh, it's cool, and then you guys got a little bit of humor, some serious stuff, local, stuff. It's great. I love it.
Oh, good. Thank
And
you.
I hope you guys take off.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we do too.
We need we need some more media options locally.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's kind of the thing. There's nothing really that I know. Christopher, he did an interview, the candidates in coffee.
German, yeah.
Christopher German. And Christopher, if you're watching this, we'd love to have you on the show. But I know he does a good job as a journalist. I'm not going to claim to be a journalist per se. Dave and I are just trying to bring something to the community that's of value. We can talk a little bit about what's going on. If we encourage people to interact with us, we do read the comments. 'Cause this is about and for Klamath Falls or Klamath County.
Yeah, and in this podcast format, I think has more value than journalism necessarily, because journalism, it's that reporter's kind of take and opinion on the issue. In this, it's a conversation, and people like for the election, people can watch this and get their own take on me rather than reading what somebody put out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, not that I'm the smartest either. That's why I was just throwing your hobbies or whatever out there. If people know you yourself, that makes me vote. If I know you as a person rather than issues are a thing. It's just your core, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
Instead of reading a 3-paragraph blurb in a pamphlet about somebody trying to make a decision, it's better to have a conversation.
Right. I agree. In fact, I was talking to a buddy of mine, and he's like, man, it's really hard for me as a voter. He's about my age. He's mid-40s. And he's like, it's really hard for me as a voter because I open up my voter pamphlet, and, like, this is all I know about the person. It's just this right here. And he's like, I've got to make a big decision off just this. And then I told him, well, man, you can watch the forums. And he's like, I'm working. I don't know.
Right.
He's not a big social media guy. And he's like, how do I get information? So I started sending him links to watch things. But things like this are how we do that. And that's great. And you guys are awesome.
Thank you so much.
For having me on here.
Yeah, yeah, and I'd like to encourage the other candidates out there, whether it's for county commissioner or sheriff or any other elected position, we'd love to have you on the show. So please reach out. We're nonpartisan. We just want to hear your opinions.
Yeah, well, once I'm done, man, I'll like and share, and I'm sure some of the other candidates will see it. And I'll reach out to them myself.
I appreciate that.
Talk to Mike and Dave. It's fun to go on here.
Yeah, we're pretty easy going.
Well, yeah, and everybody else, I guess Andrew's a trendsetter. So
right? Yeah, yeah.
All of us.
All right.
All right. Well, thank you, Klamath Falls. We'll see you next week.
See you guys.